28th of June 2021, Monday morning. Good morning and welcome to my channel. I'm Thomas Sim, PA2066. This video presentation follows the previous one, which is a comparison of real estate agency practice from earlier 2 days ago. This particular zoom in is about whether real estate negotiators in Malaysia should have a similar examination like the counterpart in Singapore, the real estate salespeople in Singapore. Of course, the previous video you can refer back to my website, my real estate property online. It is a collection of all the past 1 and 2 years. So maybe that part you can always refer back. Today's particular discussion is on if ever exam were to happen in Malaysia for the negotiators. How do you look at it? Let me begin. Welcome to my channel. Today 28th of June 2021. RENs are ready for examinations. In fact, I guess a lot of RENs out there, if you hear this from the authority, you will be very upset because all this while we were in Malaysia never had any examination for real estate negotiator, and there is a voice behind, in fact, talking about having examination and the few activities by the society and institutions. In fact, helping up promoting if examination could be something which work along the betterment of the profession. So this is a topic that I think maybe it is timely to do now. Well, based on the negotiator history, I could only date back to 1998. So in the earlier years before I graduated from my first degree in 1993. In fact, I never recall there was any name as REN or negotiator in that span of time from 1993 to time, I guess 1998 or 1999. There was no such name as real estate negotiator. Most of the agents in the market call themselves as broker or agent, generic name, and some of them working in companies. I have even some name cards which in fact call themselves as sales executive or marketing executive. So at that era of 1990s, say 1993 to 1998, there was in fact no regulation on a negotiator working under a agency firm. At that time it was basically freelance for most people, unless they are working as a sales force in the estate agency firm. And in fact that particular law was not in the our Act 242. At that time it was in fact riding on the law that is in the Contract Act. So in the Contract Act there was a mention of sub-agent. So in that aspect, most of the agents appointed in the agency contract can have a sub-agent to assist the agent to carry out the job. So the purpose of sub-agent can be seen enshrined for the role of a real estate negotiator. At that time there was no real estate negotiator in the section 22D, subsection 2 clause D. So only in 1998 I could look back at the record in the board website that is considered as early as 1998 when board issued a circular on the real estate negotiator commission. So that is 1998, and because 1998 was the beginning of the era of Google. So by year 2000 to 2010, these 10 years, the decade of year 2000, a lot of new method of advertising appeared in the internet. So 2000 to 2010, beginning we were seeing real estate negotiator and agencies are setting up a new mode of promotion, and that is going through the internet. So coming to the year 2013 to 2019, even now 2020. So for the subsequent 10 years, one decade from 2010 to 2020, the evolution of the internet has made the name negotiator, real estate negotiator, with the name being commonly heard in the internet era. And you can see that in the law, December 2017 amendment to the Act, in fact included the 22C section 2D of the Act, inserting a real estate negotiator as assisting the registered estate agent. So that is the part of the law that negotiators are now recognized in the law. So it took many years from even talking earlier days, 1998 to year 2018. You are looking at almost 20 years, 20 years of time which negotiator took to be inserted into the law. So 2018 until current, we are in fact starting to see the increase in amazingly increasing number of negotiators. So in the earlier days, negotiators are very much professionals. They are full-timer. But now, if you are looking at the condition of the COVID and people getting out of job, all the unemployment coming, a lot of negotiators out there, in fact, are unable to survive and end up being part-time. And some, in fact, some of the agencies in fact are encouraging that the negotiators are doing other mode of sales to increase their income. So these are common changes that we cannot avoid. Although, well, negotiators as a full-time job, negotiators should not involve in other mode of business. So this is the record that I dig back to board website, and board has issued a negotiators commission circular on the issue of how negotiators commission are paid in 1998, as early as 1998. So we are looking at how negotiator come about, and now we go into era of should negotiator be given due respect and being a regulated profession to emphasize the level of competence of the real estate negotiators. So current state in Malaysia, the network of negotiators employed by the agencies, indeed, if we look back to end 2020, they were already running numbers of the negotiator name tag at 46,000. In fact, the exact today number could be almost touching 48,000, I guess. Impact on the rents, indeed, actually, if we were to have a mode of system examination to filter this group of negotiators, how many will be affected? In fact, of course, the discussion point today is on if ever there is an examinations framework for the negotiators, how are the current negotiators being affected? So this is probably one of the more important areas where you as a negotiator listening to this channel may want to know. So I divided out to three major subgroup or demography. That is the young new one coming in, the older one who are already in the business, and then also the senior age. So some of our REN, our negotiators, in fact, are very much senior in age. So whether examination may become an obstacle for them. So this is what I have analyzed through my own effort of collecting the demography and also the REN, active REN in an area. So this is in Sabah. So if you look at Sabah from A to W, from the bottom A to W, a single bar represents the number of active negotiator registered in that category. So this is a registered REN number from 0 to 2000. So REN from 0 to 2000. In the very early days when they started registering negotiator, these are the pioneer of the negotiator being registered. And over time, every single bar indeed is actually the number from the interval of 2000. So if you look at the number of bars, there are 23 bars in here. So if you were to look at whole Malaysia, let's say we take this number as the whole Malaysia number, individual bar is actually a 2000 negotiator number. So 2000 times 23 bars is actually 46,000 registration. But of course, Sabah being one of the states, only probably you are looking at only 10% or less than 10% of the whole national number for that particular bar. So let's say we take the S bar. S bar is 100 numbers of 100 in 2000. So probably that is only 5% of the whole nation. So let's say if we were to assume that this Sabah actually whole Sabah registration for the whole Malaysia during that time, from the 2000 numbers, Sabah only took 5% of the whole total national number. But let's say if nobody were to resign or nobody were to be inactive, these 100 people would stay on until now, and then this will reflect the 5% in Sabah stay on the job. But let's say if averagely over the years, Sabah has been registering 5% of the whole nation. But in a lot of scenario in the earlier days, a lot of the older or more senior members of the negotiator network, indeed they have left the job. So from 100 of registration in a category, they have gone down to less than 20 or even less than 5. So a lot of them actually has resigned and no more active in the business, or they are not probably active here, but they could be freelance, we do not know. But at the glance of this chart, the bar chart, you can see that averagely, if you were to see earlier days, most of the negotiator either have resigned or they have left the business of registration. They are not registered anymore. So let's say if we were to take 46,000 of them in whole Malaysia, and using the postulation, we call it postulation of this effect, that means any number that is less than REN 20,000. Let's say you are a REN registered many years ago, so your number is REN 14062. Then the numbers here, which belongs to the earlier category, in my assumption in this analysis, only 20% of the total number actually are left, or less than 20% of the total number are actually left in the market. The subsequent years, the later years, because they are more recent, so most of them probably is still struggling into the business. And let's say we just take 50% of them still active in the business. The total number of negotiators based on the total whole country of 46,000 names, we likely be left with about only 14,000. So the total number of negotiators, let's say if we were to assume and postulate from this scenario in Sabah, whole total number active in Malaysia now is around 14 or 15,000 negotiators. And you can see in Sarawak as well, Kuching, and then also in Kedah or Alostar, the earlier years, very few of them are still active. But the recent years, some of them, because they're recently just into the business, they are still active. In fact, you can see most of the bar chart shows that around P and Q. So if they are still the recent ones, P and Q, some of them are in the business at a high activity level, whereas the one that is less than P and Q is actually a lot of them are no more in the business. So if you see P and Q bar are high, this is the REN number running from 18,000 to 20,000, and Q is 20,000 to 22,000. So these are the two area charts that you can see quite significant, being indicator of survival of the negotiator. So those above 20,000 number and those below 20,000 number, you can see the big chunk of the less than 20,000 numbers are no more active in the negotiator network. So let's say we use the same prediction and also calculation. Roughly you are looking at 10% left for those early years, and also about 40 to 50% left for the more recent years. It takes about maybe 3 years to see that a lot of the negotiators would still stay put as a permanent negotiator. So this looking at those really left behind, and they are very successful negotiators who can pull through so many years. So these are probably the negotiators who are team leader, and also some of them probably are running their own show in some sort of arrangement with their license holders. So current state in Malaysia, let me summarize, is that roughly you're looking at only less than maybe 20% still active for those early year negotiators, and those recent year negotiators probably only half of them left in the market. So the examination, if there were to be examination imposed on negotiators, then it would be affecting only around 14 to 15,000 of the recent, mainly the recent negotiators. The senior negotiators in numbers are probably very small, probably also sitting behind in aircon office rather than running the show, as they have already a team of negotiators doing the job for them. So let me just give you a few scenarios for a negotiator who are in the thinking of the job. So Wendy is a legally trained person, but she is not practicing as a counsel or lawyer. Her ambition is to become a real estate professional, to own an agency firm. So this is Wendy. Then you have Ronnie, who is recently out of job because lorry driver now the company closed down, so he got no job. So now he is thinking how to get on with another job. So does not know what he really want. You have AB, who is a naturalist, who probably from a good background, freelance most of the time, doesn't want to be tied down with the maybe 8 to 5 job. She thinks that maybe making some money from estate agency work, and then she can continue her very nice freelance style of life. Then you have Barry, who is just recently completed SPM and cannot pursue higher education because family being poor and not able to sustain her continuing college life. So she is looking at maybe studying for something and then become a real estate person, and at the same time make money, maybe one day become registered estate agent. So these are the 4 characters that I show you for a scenario where most of the negotiator came about. So you look at that, you can see that you have one extreme end, Wendy, who is always focused and ready. So she is very much ready for the job. She is also well position for the job. So in fact, exceeding minimum requirement to be a real estate practitioner. Then you have on the extreme end here that the person who is certain of what she may want to go into job market but not ready. She may not be ready, just a minimum requirement. And in between you have a range of people, those who are not ready and also uncertain, like a person who recently lost his job or her job, and we do not know whether they are actually academically able to carry on with the job of a negotiator, because the negotiator handles a lot of legal issues. So these are issues that may be a bit of a problem if the person wants to become a negotiator. Then you have a well-educated person meet requirement, but then uncertain because she may want to have a life that is more of freedom rather than being tied down by customer calling her and asking her for showing viewing. So this is a bit of like character issue rather than ability to do the job. So you have those who are on one end very fit for the job, and the other end who is fit but not yet ready. Then you have those in between whereby they are actually not sure whether they are fit or not, and not certain of whether they want the job or not. So you have a wide range of people who are involved in real estate practice and not very much fitting into the job nature. So we have three issues we are thinking here for examination, maybe to even maybe use for a screening process or filter process for all these issues of not sure, uncertain, not ready type of personality. So there's a first issue, not sure, not ready, and not really have the minimum requirement. This is like condition of Ronnie who is a driver, probably not so highly educated in terms of ability to read contract wordings in the agency agreement. Second, the person may not be sure, still ready, yes, but not long term. But currently, just because unemployment, some people are recently retrenched. Although educated, well educated, some may be professionals, but not sure in the sense that whether they need the job or they really want to be long term in this job. Thirdly, is those who are ready anytime because they got money and they can stay on for 6 months without making any deals. They are still ready, but they are looking at it as a part-timing job. So in fact, are they committed? We do not know. So these are the three scenarios that you see a lot of negotiators coming into the market, and because of this scenario, there is a lot of issues coming from the end user, the public point of view. So there is a lot of heterogeneity in the end market, job market of a real estate practitioner, in fact in Malaysia. So we call it from zero to hero. So variety of negotiator can have a lot of background, myriad of backgrounds. They can be finance, business people, marketing people, they have arts degree, they could be probably housewife, well-educated housewife even, jobless people, zero to high academics. There are people who has postgraduate master's degree. They are professionals, some of them may be engineers, chemical engineers at one time, because at one time there was no job prospect for oil and gas, and a lot of people in the oil and gas market were retrenched. Therefore they look for a real estate job in order to carry on. So a lot of these are engineers, well-trained engineers even. So some of them are chemists, some of them entrepreneurs. They call them endopreneurs because they are doing education. Some of them in fact are into tuition, part-time tuition, and even sometimes even on a college. And some of these also are investors, forex investors, Bitcoin traders. So all these are variety of people who are actually at our end seeing in the market as a negotiator. So different of level and different types of service level also, because they tell different aspect of their strength. Because if you are a finance geek, you are a graduate of finance or accountancy, then definitely you are more tuned to your level of language. But if you are probably from the engineering field, then your thinking and the way that you handle some of the matters in the client's aspect more likely will be more civil engineering. So end up the variety of background making the customers or our end clientele actually receiving different services level from the negotiator. Some of these I group it under three areas. So at the end, the outcome is confusion. I will emphasize the word confusion because why? Because these three common scenarios happen. if the negotiator is not a so-called high-level, highly trained negotiator, then most of the time it's only relationship selling. So when a negotiator talk about the product, the property that the person handles is more of a closing sales with the intention of keeping the relationship of this clientele. The second one probably more to higher level, which because of the fact that they are finance and investor type of negotiator, they are great service in terms of investment, talking their clientele to buy from them. So this is a great service. Thirdly is the dark box service. Dark box service is the biggest amount of way that we view with negotiator or the salesperson in the real estate practice as a dark box agent. Why? Because there is no way that they can tell a customer is going to buy, because it's only by chance, random chance that these customers come to them and just rightful in a place to sell or buy a property. So this has no intention in the initial stage that you know that particular customer needs a particular service. In fact, the particular customer is just randomly being you as a negotiator, and randomly because this particular customer needs of real estate. So this is the scenario in the current market. So the issue end up is that there is inevitable scenario here. Two scenario I will likely emphasize, that is failure of the profession causing the public for an outrage because you have one end of the public looking for certain standard of service, but from the provider side, which is the negotiator side, the many variety or background of the negotiator not able to give a consistent standard of service. Imagine you are looking for property and then you end up with a negotiator who is not able to give answers to most of your technical questions. So these are issues that have pulled down the image of the service of a professional estate agent to the public. And end up if there is such a mismatch, the issue of closing sales becomes attended. So that means a person who may have a scenario of 10 customers, only 3 customers end up being in a good fitting and close the sales, and you have another group of people who probably attended 5% or even 6% of the total number. So the 5 to 6% people will always say that they are hero super sales people. They should fit into the job as a professional agent. But then at the end, there is the total mismatch because in the beginning it is actually a dark board type of agent, whereby you do not know who you actually end up closing sales with. So this is a scenario in the sense some who were just unlucky end up admitting self-defeat because they are not able to close sales, not because their customers are mistreated, just that their customers are not in the rightful position to close the sale. So that may be solved. These so-called issues of mismatch may be solved by having a consistently way of screening. So this way of screening, in fact, is by examination. If you look at professions like medicine, law, and all those professionals, the purpose of their examination is to sort of make a benchmark, or in fact filter out those who are not able to comply with the standard of practice. So the first of that is actually professionalism. So a professional body like regulator or professional regulator should in a way ensure that the end outcome of the profession is to a certain level of standard of service. So examination is used as a tool to ensure such a compliance to a certain standard setting. So consistent level of competence is required for a profession. If you look at estate agency as a profession, then this becomes an issue. So just now we were talking a lot about those who are not able to close the gap between the expectation and the ability to service the public. This may be narrowed down by using a method called having a standard in the profession, meaning to have a standard in filtering the workforce in the profession. So this is by having a way examination to filter out those who are not able to carry out the job. So this specific body of knowledge through the examination, making sure they are able to grab the certain standard of a basis of a profession to maintain and to set a future standard for the profession. So examination has a role to first give a consistent level of competence and therefore emphasize in the end professionalism for the public. Second is that because there are so many different level of people joining the profession, the profession become very much a so-called non-exclusive. So there is no recognition. Anyone and everyone can become a negotiator by just attending 2 days course, the NCC course, and therefore there is no consistency, as I mentioned just now, in terms of their level of service and knowledge. And second is everybody can do the job and none actually be responsible to betterment of the profession. So end up the issue of you can do, I also can do, why should I study? Why should I better off myself in the aspect of knowledge? So by having examination, you can filter out some of these bad characters. So this selection process will elevate the image of the profession, because not everyone and anyone can be a negotiator, because you need to go through a certain filtering process. And being that you are exclusive, and then therefore you maintain a level and you would want to have a consistent long-term relationship with your client. And in that sense, likely that a good level of self-maintenance and self-monitoring can be achieved. Last to say is that an examination can also have standard setting system for minimum entry. So to be able to go to this examination, you can first impose a minimum entry level. And lastly, this examination pathway to filter out those non-consistent in their level of knowledge. So you can have basically a good grab of a group of people who has got minimum understanding of the wordings and the language used in an agreement contract. Because the minimum entry level can be a setting by maybe another examination on the level of language. If a person did not have a SPM, because having passed SPM 30-40 years ago, a person may have lost the SPM certificate. So this does not mean that it bar the person from coming to the examination. But at least there is a certain minimum level of language that the person should grab, so that they understand that the need of the profession, a lot of it is about legal matters. Likely, if you can compare, the examination route would have professional betterment by keeping it to a higher level of image. So those who are not really serious about the job will not come to the job market, because they need to take up this examination and pass this examination. Over time, there will be good people in the profession that they can carry on and become leaders. So in the future, so you can have a more homogeneous way of self-regulating the industry. If you do not have the examination, as I compare on the left-hand side, any Tom, Dick and Harry will just become negotiator, and over time there will be competition, because you are taking in anyone and everyone. So you end up not able to sustain, the business is not able to sustain, and that many will become part-timer because they cannot continue with the level of competition that is in the market, and then public trust will be eroded because calling a person who is engaged in another business and doing quite well with other businesses would not come to serve you in the viewing or in the estate agency business. Things to do for steps to get through to roll out this examination for negotiators. I would see it in 3 areas. So timeline is to be fixed by the regulator to have this examination, and it's set out to have a syllabus. So there is a need of coming up with a syllabus so that we know what to get the negotiator to study and pass the exam. There is major 2 groups. One is the current negotiator who are already in the job, as I mentioned earlier. They are already probably active for 20 years in the market, so there should be a specific time for them to make them go through the same process, the examination process, and get re-registered. That means renew as a new higher standard negotiator. Then of course there are new ones. They are continuously coming in to the industry, so this means that there is a time to start this examination, so that all the new ones must go through this examination before they are registered to do the job. The part that I would say maybe to lengthen the pathway of examination so that many would have an opportunity to clear the examination. We have probably 3 subcategories of the negotiator, the current negotiators. One is those who are very senior, more than 10 years of experience in the market. So maybe they have all the experiences and they are already team leaders. So they probably do not need to go through this process anymore, the examination process. So these are exemptions for them. Those who are less than 5 years or 5 years may need to do some part papers or part examination so that they can be uplifted, their image. Some of these also would have maybe less than 5 years or so, or very recently just joined the profession, may need to do a full examination to ensure that they are able to carry on the mark as a negotiator. So likely the new REN has to go through the whole process, and there is a need of a minimum requirement for the new REN to sign up for the exam. And this means similar to the level of getting into the board exam for the registered estate agent level. And those who are in the REN examination, if they pass, they can get exemption to the board exam as well. There should be no limit to attempt for the examination. Of course, this is a regulated examination, like in the sense of Singapore, where a negotiator in Singapore, the salesperson in Singapore, has to go through paper 1 and paper 2 of the RES examination, the real estate salesperson's examination, before they can carry out the job of a salesperson in Singapore. Thank you very much. I am Thomasin, PA 2066. This is my number. Thank you for listening to the video.